Hi, my name is Leah Day, and welcome to this video for the Frame Motion Quilting Project. Today I am working on Duchess Reigns. This is a quilt that I've been working on for more than 2 years, and it took about a year off. Just simply, it was really time consuming. I got really bogged down with this project and just needed to step away from it for a while. I folded it up and put it in a corner of my sewing room and pretended it wasn't there for about a year, and now I've gotten back to it, and I've gotten back to it with a very different perspective. I'd like to share that with you today. I'm also working in a different way now, working a lot faster and with less focus on perfection. And this is a show quilt. It is a whole cloth show quilt, and that made me really nitpicky about it at the beginning. And I was picking out every single little mistake and really being obsessive compulsive with it. And that just got too time consuming, and I got bogged down with it and bored, and that's why I put it away. And so when I brought it back out again, it was with the idea that number one, I can change up the design if I need to. I can try and make it easier for myself if I need to. And also that I'm just going to have to ignore some mistakes. They're going to just be in there, and that's okay too. So let me show you some quilting on this quilt today and a few little bits about it. So the first thing that you're going to notice probably is this Juki. I am working on the Juki Exceed F400, and I'm using this machine because my TL 2010 just needed to be serviced. It was starting to break thread a lot. I was just having some stitch issues and stuff. That let me know I probably needed a servicing when changing the needle and kind of oiling and cleaning everything out didn't fix it. It probably just needs the service and needs the timing readjusted. Something's going on in there I don't know how to fix myself. So I switched to this machine, and this is a slightly smaller machine, but it has a few more features. It has a lot more decorative applique stitches, and it also has a really well-designed free motion quilting foot. Let me zoom in and you can see it. This foot I really like. It's a low shank foot. I'm pretty sure it comes with the machine. If not, you can probably find it at a Janome dealer. And it has a screw at the very top that adjusts it, so you can rotate that screw and the foot will lift, and rotate it back down and the foot will drop. And this kind of fine-tuned movement is really important. I think it's the reason why this machine is working so good for this quilt now. And so let me just show you as I start quilting. As soon as I started using this machine, I stopped breaking thread so often, and I think it's because I was able to get that foot at exactly the right height that I needed for quilting. And you can see that this is very dense quilting. I'm intentionally building up thread. I'm intentionally travel stitching over areas multiple times. It's called thread painting, or in this case, I was calling it cat hairball filler, but really it's just so dense that it's basically just thread painting on the surface. And I was breaking thread a lot with the other machine, and I think the reason was that maybe there was something off with the timing, but it could have also been that the height of the foot, I just didn't have the control over the height of the foot as much as I have here, where if I'm working into an area that's puffier than others, I can raise the foot slightly or I can lower it, and that's just an adjustment that's right there on the foot. But moving that little screw gives me a lot more control. So kind of got a couple different things that I'm doing at once. I'm stitching around the feathers and kind of building up the thread between them and around them. I've also got this kind of line space here that around the feather that's completely thread painted. So I'm kind of working back and then forward and then filling in all around and then working into the next feather. It's pretty slow, kind of trying to just knock it out one feather at a time. And one of the biggest challenges with this quilt is feeling like I'm making progress, because it's so slow and so densely filled. When I was working on it before, it was very hard to see that I'd made any progress at all without sitting down for like 6 hours. It just was impossible to see that I was making any headway. And so one thing that I started doing just recently is to shoot photos. And I shoot a photo every evening of what I have completed. And then the next day I shoot another photo, obviously, and I can compare the two. I mean, I now have several days worth of photos. I can compare them and see just how much has gotten done over the course of the last 3 weeks where I've been working on this quilt, and that feels really, really good. When you have a big project like this, I think being able to see your progress is really kind of essential, because unless you're able to see it, it kind of just feels like you're stuck forever on the same thing. And I've made a lot of progress just in the last 2 days, and those photographs were really what kind of lit the fire in my pants to get it all done. I have been really bogged down with this quilt and really felt negative about it. You know, really honestly, I hated it. I hated the choices that I'd made, and just this decision right here to thread paint this much. I was so angry at myself for making these decisions and just didn't want to work on it. And when you feel like that about a project, you really just need to walk away from it. Don't throw it away, but just fold it up and put it in a corner, get it out of your sight, basically, where you don't have to think about it. And when you're ready to get back to it, you'll know. I really just didn't force myself to get back to this quilt, but it was always kind of in the back of my mind. And when I started thinking about her a lot, that's when I knew it was probably time to get back to it and give this a go again with a different perspective. One of the things that I'm not doing anymore is I'm not stopping to deal with every single thread break. My thread has broken a few times in this quilt, and I've just stitched over it. I've just covered it up with thread painting, and that's okay. It's not that I like leaving imperfections in a quilt. I hate it, but if I stopped and dealt with every single little thread issue, I would never get this thing done. So that's kind of something that I've had to just accept, that the back is not going to look perfect. There's some issues and mistakes and stuff on the back that's definitely visible to a judge, and I don't care. They can point it out all they want to. The simple fact of the matter is, I've got to just get this quilt finished, and that might mean leaving a few mistakes in the quilt, and that's okay. Perfection is not really the point here. The point is enjoying the process, and I'm enjoying the process of quilting it, not being nitpicky and driving myself crazy with it. So kind of that's my perspective and where I've changed as this has progressed. And like I said, this has been a 2-year-long project. I can remember dyeing the surface when my son was turning, let's see, that would have been 6, and he's about to turn 8 now. So just kind of gives you an idea of how long this has been going on. And I'd really like to see it finished this year. I was planning a really complicated binding technique. I was planning to use something pretty complicated, and I've since changed my mind on that too. It's just a matter of looking at realistically, what do I want out of this quilt, and I really want to enjoy it. I want to see it on the wall, and I don't really care much about that extra complicated binding technique anymore. She's going to be beautiful just exactly the way she is. I don't need to go and do that extra step and have all that complication and mess in my studio. I don't even have space to do it, really. So it's kind of just a different perspective and changing my mind, even if that is changing up the plan. Okay, so in here I am quilting a design called Boomerangs, and that design is broken up into triangles. And so I break up the space into triangles and then fill with multiple rows of echoes. And it's okay if it gets dense. It's kind of the point. I want the thread to look really dense on the surface in these sections, and I want that to be a kind of a direct opposition to the sharp stippling that's in these other sections, where you see a lot more of the fabric shining through these sections. I want a lot less of the fabric and more thread on the surface of these sections. So it's almost as dense as those sections around the feathers, but not quite. I don't want it to look totally matte white with thread, but close to it. And this, I could definitely change these up too, and I thought about that a lot. Would I feel better about it if the fillers were different? Would I feel less bored if I was stitching other designs? And the reason I decided not to change up the fills is because they radiate out from the center, and I just felt like that would be a little too distracting if I changed those. It's one of those things that I just, I kind of had to look at all of the different choices and options that I had. I did decide to change up some of the feather designs, and that was kind of fun, but I decided ultimately that I really wanted to keep these two fills running consistently in the background, even if, I now hate them. I've stitched them so repeatedly that I absolutely can't stand both of them, but at the same time I think they're going to be really pretty. So it's going to work out fine. It's just a matter of getting in, filling in the space, breaking it down. You're seeing how I'm breaking down the space kind of into triangles and then filling those triangles up. I wasn't doing this from the beginning, and I ended up with so many pleating issues, and you can maybe see some of them over here. I was ending up with so many pleating issues that I ended up having to just change the way I was filling. Breaking the space up with triangles first really works much better, and also kind of helps control that pleating that's going on the fabric. The reason it's pleating is because it's so dense. It's not a normal problem that I have. It is also pleating because this is a hand-dyed whole cloth. The fabric was originally white, and then I dyed it after it had been partially quilted, outline quilted, and you can find some videos on that. I think, yeah, I've definitely shot some videos, and I'll link those up so that way you can see the dyeing process and stuff of how this the quilt surface was dyed after it was partially quilted. It's a little complicated, but it was fun. It was definitely something I should have experimented a little bit more with, because I didn't realize, all the ramifications of what I was doing and how that was going to play out in the fabric. But ultimately, I think it's going to make a really pretty quilt, and I'm excited to get it finished up. So that's it for this video. I really hope that you've enjoyed seeing more quilting on Duchess Reigns and hearing about my changing perspective on this project. I think that when you feel angry about a project or just really, really frustrated with it, that's definitely a sign that you need to listen to and put that project away. And for this quilt, I put it away for more than a year, and that was good. That was a very, very good thing. Had I continued to work on it and try and plow through it, I would have been really, really unhappy with it, I think, in the end. Not to mention really frustrated. So I think that that was a good choice, and I'm really enjoying the process of working on it now. Part of, I think, every quilt, and certainly the really big quilts, it's kind of an evolution of your mentality. And I started this quilt, I wanted her to be perfect. I wanted every single little area to be absolutely perfect, and I wanted to try new techniques and kind of push my boundaries. But there's always a kind of a side effect of that, is sometimes you can get in over your head. Sometimes you can end up with a project that's just too big at the wrong time and be frustrating instead of fun and exhilarating. And that's really what ended up happening with this. I was just too busy to work on it, and I didn't realize it was going to be this time consuming or tedious to work on. So it's a learning process. It's a continual learning process, and it's one that I love. I'm certainly never going to figure it all out, I don't think. I think it's always going to be something that every big quilt like this teaches me something new. And Duchess Reigns has certainly taught me a lot about how I like to work and how to work more quickly and how to let go of that need for perfection. So I hope that you've enjoyed this too. Until next time, let's go quilt.